Hi all. Okay, I've been meaning to try and create a video for a while now. About a year or so ago, decided to try it, and I've never got round to it. I was going to try one of the D-Day games. Um, anyway, years gone by, and I'd like to try Enemy Action Ardennes, as it's probably one of my favourite games. So this is a German Soul system set up. I was going to start and try and record a video right from the beginning, but I was looking over a session report by James Zajic. I don't know if that's right, James, but anyway, he's got a great session report. Only goes up to the first couple of days. He finishes on the 18th, I think. I've looked over it before, and I wanted to set it up and play it through, and because he's got some good strategies as well, so I wanted to look at them, and also I noticed a few what I think are maybe mistakes, so I thought I'd try and play through his session and just go over it and move the pieces about and point out what I think might be some mistakes. It's a pretty tricky game, this, so yeah, it's more than likely you're going to miss something from time to time. I'm a bit of a stickler for getting all the rules right, so well, maybe if I get any comments on this, if it eventually gets published, you never know, somebody can point me in the right direction. There's a few things that trip me up. Gaps in the line. I've been trying to get my head around all that and still find that a bit tricky. So hopefully, if I do get around to recording a full playthrough, these occasions will come up where I think there might be a gap or there might not be a gap, and somebody can maybe put me straight. Anyway. So I'll go through James's session from the beginning, and we'll see how we get on. I don't have a great setup for this whole videoing thing. The sound and light might be a bit of an issue, and to be honest, nobody might see this video because it might not go as planned, but we can at least try. I'd like to try and do it one day. Okay, so this is James's starting hand. It wasn't till I played through most of the cards that I realised there's 10 cards here instead of 9. I think he's just added card 63 in by mistake, because I think it comes in his hand when he redraws some cards, so I'll take that one out just now. I'm sure it gets added on later on. So his first card he plays is card 49 to activate the 58th core, and what it does is, actually I've obviously got these round the wrong way, so that's a reinforced battle that he's going to use. So he does activate the 58th core with card 50, and then because on D16 the first impulse none of the German units can move, he is going to use a reinforced battle card tactic from card 49 for his attack. So yeah, it's quite a clever move, this. Something I'm going to try if I get the chance next time I play. So he reinforces with the 47th 2nd Panzer by moving them 2 into there, and then another 3, so that's a 5 movement into there. And the attack X is going to be 1406. The 28th of the 8th Corps. So the odds are 25-3, which is 8-1. There's a total of 7 units. So 7 pools plus 1 for elite units is 8 pools, plus 1 for the reinforced battle. And then he also adds card 62 for some fixed artillery, so that takes the chip pools up to 10. So 8-1, maximum of 10 chip pools, minimum of 2. He decides to draw all 10, and he gets a good result of D6A1. So defenders take 6 hits, attackers take 1 hit. So for the Germans, 1 hit, he picks 6116 to take the step loss. And he's got enough hits, even with the IP, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits he would need. He got 6 to destroy, eliminate the unit. And for his advance after combat, he moves 16116 into here, and then he moves him into 1407, which is all good, yes. Now, there was no need for a roadblock check there because there's a unit adjacent to that. Bridges don't get blown on the, is it the first impulse or even on day 16? Let me check. Yeah, it's throughout day the 16th that there's no bridges blown. So, and I think we can put a marker there saying that's now a German bridge. And he also advances both of these units into here, and also this unit into here. Because of the traffic jams on the first impulse, there's only 1 unit allowed to cross that bridge, so that's probably the reason why he's just moved into there. He also moves, advances after combat the 2nd Panzer Corps units into 1306. This is pretty clever. So 2 hex advance, 1 hex into there, and his second advance, as long as it's not going from zone of control to zone of control and crossing a river, or what's the other one, if it's into a forest without a road, then you can advance it anywhere. So his second attack, that's him spent 6 command points, but first impulse of 16th, you've got to spend a minimum of 10 command points. So he activates the 66 Corps, and he uses card 60 for assault coordination. Sorry, I can't see that. There we go. For assault coordination, attacking hex 1205, is it? Yeah, here. So he has a strength of 16 against 2, so 8 to 1, and 4 units attacking. So that's 4 chip pools, 1 for the elite is 5, and 1 for this unit because it's got more than 2 steps is 6, and 1 for the assault coordination card. So 7 chip pools. And the results not so good this time. He gets D6 A3. So he takes a step loss on 3 2nd Panzer and 62 and 2 2nd Panzer. But D6 is good enough to eliminate the 106th. So he's got another 2 hex advance. He advances 2 2nd Panzer to 1105 and then to 1106. Now, this is where there should be a robot check here, but I think he maybe forgets about this one. Yeah, I think he possibly forgets about that one. 3 2nd Panzer goes to 1105, which is into here. The 62nd advances to 1205. It's just infantry, so it can only advance 1 hex, and the 304 unit stays where it is. And then actually it does check, gets a wee bit muddled up. I think it's just hex numbers here, but he does make a robot check for this hex. I think he points at this hex, but it is for this hex. And he passes that, he rolls a 5, so all's good there. So that's him now spent 9 command points, so he's still got to spend another 1. The thing is, it's got to be a minimum of 10, but there's no maximum, so he can spend 11, 12, whatever. So, but he's only going to get 1 more move before the allies get a shot. So he plays card 36 to activate the first SS, and with the intention of attacking hex 0803. But although the first SS has been activated, they still can't move because it's the first impulse. So it also plays the 6th Panzer Army card for reinforced battle. So he moves 501, but this is with reinforced battle, into 802 hex, so 1, 2. And then moves the 1st and 2nd first SS to 903, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he has 6 units attacking, 25 strength points against 3, so 8 to 1 odds again, and 3, 6, 9, 9 pools, 1 for the elite is 10, 1 for the combat tactic, making 11 pools. So he still has a minimum of 2 pools, and comments that the first 2 chits were good, so he's only going to make 10 of the 11 pools And the results he gets are good. They're D6 and A1. So defender takes 6 hits, which is going to eliminate it, and the Germans take 1 hit. So for the German hit, he flips 48, 12 AG. And the 14th Cavalry are eliminated. So for his advance after combat, he advances the 1st and 2nd of the 1st SS into the hex where the unit was eliminated. That's 1, and then back out into 904 for his 2nd advance. The 506 advances into the hex where the unit was eliminated, and then moves on to 904 for his 2nd move. Again, not moving from zone of control to zone of control with the 2nd advance. 501 comes to 804 as well. The 2 3F infantry units move into 803. 89 12 VG advances into 803 as well. And the other 2 infantry units stay at 703. He mentions here that strengthening this with 4 strength rather than the 2 is a good idea. There's a nasty Allied card, Germans Exposed, which targets units that have got a strength of 2 and just knocks a step off them. So he makes a comment there, which is something that comes up later, but I'll talk about that later. So he's now spent 16 command points, so his impulse is over. He's left with cards 58 and 59. So these are the new cards that he draws back up to his hand size of 6. Card 37, 57, 61, and this is card 63, which he had noted as in his first hand, but I think that was just a mistake obviously, and that's now in his hand now for his next impulse. So the Allied now get an impulse. So this is the card he draws for the first Allied impulse. Card number 5, which is 5 core. And like he rightly says, there's no units in the 5th Corps to deploy in the reserve units box this turn. Then I think this is a slight error where he skips over the next command, which is Expedite Corps Reserves, and there's 2 5th Corps units in the 17th box that could be moved to the reserve units box, so I think that's what should have happened. I could be wrong, I may be missing something. There's lots of rules in this game, so keeping them all straight. Anyway, he then goes on, like I say, he happens to skip that one for whatever reason, and the next one that's applicable, this only applies on the 20th to the 29th, so the next one applicable is activate all units. So I'll carry on doing what he done. So he activates the units in the 5th Corps. So I had to go and look at the map there again. I mistakenly had left some improved position markers on some of these units. That was from a previous play of this, and obviously that's one the conditions you look at. I tend to look at first. If they can have an IP marker, then the units can activate, and you draw the 3 cards for them. And there's a few other conditions that make it happen, but that's one of the easiest ones to look at. And when I first looked, I'd left the IP markers on these guys from the previous one, and I was like scratching my head, wondering how he can actually activate them. So that was my bad. So these cards activate in order from lowest to highest. So card number 13's going to activate first. Another December 16th rule is that allied non-mechanised units can move only 1 hex during an activation. So, as James rightly points out, there's nothing that's not adjacent that can move adjacent, because they can only move, these 2 infantry units can only move 1 hex, and the rest of them are all adjacent anyway. So card 13 doesn't do anything, so we move on to the next card. Card 15 and again card 16 don't do anything. I'm not going to go heavily into this. I'm not really trying to teach people how to play the game properly. I just like to try and get some playthrough, maybe some playthrough that shows the game to victory, and properly, hopefully with the least amount of mistakes. So I'm not going to go through the 2 cards, but they're not applicable anyway. So the last thing you can do is what I was talking about, the IP markers. Because none of these cards have done anything, you can place an IP marker on any unit that's not in a town, city, or it's already if it's already got an IP marker, obviously. So I think there's 3 units applicable, so I'll put IP markers on them. So yeah, 16-1 at hex 608 gets an IP marker. 9-2 at 405 gets an IP marker, just putting them underneath. And 38-2 at 60, that's a 505, he gets an IP marker too. Might have been better if I moved the map, the camera there. So he gets an IP, he gets an IP, and he gets an IP. This is where James mentions the fact about if he had only moved 2 strength points into hex 804 here, that this German's exposed card would have been applicable. This unit would have been able, this unit has got a strength of 2. But what he didn't notice, it's situational strength, and this unit, although it would have had a strength of 2, it's in a forest hex, and situational strength 1 gets added to situational strength calculation when it's in a forest, so that wouldn't have applied, but that was irrelevant anyway because he's got 4 points in there, 4 strength points. But just to point out, that's what I mentioned. And that's the end of the first Allied Impulse. Okay, here's a reminder of James's hand. Just about to start the second German Impulse. He mentions beforehand that possibilities he may play card 63 for the special Wunderheit command, Card 37 to deploy the 3F First SS Panzer unit. No, it's not a Panzer unit. Infantry unit. Paratroopers, right? And also card, quite an interesting one, card 61, the Army Group card, was a really strong card, and using that for the Commandos event, which stops, basically doesn't give the Allies skip their next impulse. So it is pretty strong, but interesting choice there and something to think about. So his first card play is indeed the special event. It can only be used on the 16th and 17th. So this is really his only chance of getting it, because this card won't come back on the 17th. The way the cards work. So here's the Von der Height unit. So there's a lot of conditions to placing this out, and he goes through the fact that there's nothing in row 0700 that can be placed. Where are we here? Because it's got to be placed in a, what is it, a woods, a clear hex. Oh, let me see here. Special Von der Height. It needs to be placed in an unoccupied, non-town, clear, broken or woods hex, west of and within 8 hexes of a west wall hex, north of the 0800 hex row and not adjacent to any unit. So, because the 0700 row here, that's a forest, that's adjacent, that's adjacent, that's adjacent, that's adjacent, and I think, well, that's forest, and I think that hex is just too far away. It needs to be 8 hexes from my west wall. So I don't know if there's other options, but he ends up placing it in 0408. So like he says, it's quite far away in to get to it. It does block things off here a little bit. It doesn't have a zone of control, but it can cause some trouble for the Allies. I think when it comes to placing reserves. Yeah. So he places that there. If he manages to get a German unit to there, I think you gain a victory point for it. But I think the main purpose is to probably annoy the Allies with the placement of the reserve units. So his next card play is card 58. The next two card plays are quite interesting. He uses this card to activate any one unit. You can only do this once per day. So he's using that, and he's going to activate this unit and move it into there for 1 and into there for 3. With the purpose of the next time these units can activate, this can come across here, this can come across here and surround that infantry unit. And then he does go ahead and do as he was thinking of doing. He plays the Army Group B card for any event, and plays the Commandos event, which prevents the Allies from taking their next impulse. So he's now played 9 command points, is it? He had to play, oh no, he could play a minimum of, it's 5, so he'd only played 4 there, and then with that takes him over the 5, so that's the end of his impulse. So like I said, that ended his impulse, but because he played the Commandos event, it also ends allied impulse. So, and then he draws up to 6 cards again. 3 new cards he gets are 35, 44 and 66. And he comments that this should be an exciting impulse. He makes a couple of comments regarding what his plans are for what he's thinking for this next impulse, but I'll just go ahead and carry on and do what he actually does. So he then plays card 57 to activate the 66 core, and moves 2, 4, 4. Hang on a sec. Moves to 1204 for 1, then 1205 for 2, then 1306. That's down there for 3. And then 1206, let's just back up again. So that's 4 movement points. He's then got to stop and take a roadblock check here. This one doesn't need because he's got a unit adjacent. And unfortunately rolls a 2, so a roadblock pops up here. He now moves the infantry unit 62 into 1106 and then crosses the bridge into 1107. And like he points out, this is now a big roadblock check because if he can avoid it there, he's got a queen run into St. Vith. And fortunately rolls an 8, so no roadblock in St. Vith, and he's got 1 movement point left, so moves the 62nd into St. Vith, gaining 2 victory points. Also put a German bridge marker there, and give him a couple of victory points. He mentions here that he forgot to say that the Von der Height came in out of supply, which I kind of forgot about too, so. So he comments on a couple of ideas that he's planning on maybe doing. I'll just carry on and do what he actually does. So he plays card 44 to activate the 47th core. And he starts with 2nd Panzer. Moves 1107, 1007. So 1107 for 1, 1007 for 2, 907 for 3. He's now got to take a roadblock check here. He rolls a 7, so all good. And it makes I think, a bit of a miscalculation here, which is a pity because He doesn't think he can reach 0706, which is it Bollingen? Try and get that fuel marker. But he started there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So unless I'm missing something, looks like he could have made it. So he says it's out of range, so it moves to 807 and then ends there. So rather than go there, he decides just to go here. I think oh no, that's okay. Oh yeah, so he's already done a robot check there. There's no need for one there because there's an allied unit there. He should actually be making one here. I think he misses a couple of these because there's not a road attached to it. But you still need to make a check there. You just don't need to stop if one pops up. Anyway, I think that gets brought up later on. So carries on with the rest of the 47th Corps. Moves 3, 2 Panzer, 1105 to 1205. So that's 1, 1106, 1005 to where does he go next? 6 and 1005, yeah. And he leaves him. Well, yeah, he's moved into zone of control of this unit. Yeah, actually, sorry, that was 1, 2, because he's moving out of zone of control. 3, and then 4, and then he has to stop. I suppose that's another crossing of a bridge, so that should be a German bridge as well. And then moves the 304 2nd Panzer. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, again, he should check for this here. He should also be checking for this. So there should be 2 checks there. He seems to miss that. Moves his last movement point into here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then talks about a roadblock check coming up here. But there should have been one here first. And when he was here, it should have been, both of them should have been checked, like we say, because of the road not connecting. It throws some people off, I think. So he comes back to the roadblock check for there, but he's going to move the rest of his units first. So 77 goes 1806 to 1807. 1806 to 1807, so he's coming across the water. 78 goes 1806 to 1706 for 1, to 1606 for 2, and then to 1607 for 3. 243 goes from 1706 to 1605, which is only 1 point. That's a clear hex. And then 1606 for 2, and then 1607 for another 3. That's his 5. And finally moves the stack of Panzerwehr units 3 into there, and then 1 into there. So he's now ready to make an attack on Hex 1708. He has 7 units. Unfortunately, these are coming across the river, so they've got a strength of 16, which gets cut in half to 8, and that's 7. So it's 15 to 3, which is 5 to 1. 7 units, no elites, so 7 chip pools. But now he plays card 37 for a reinforced battle. Playing the card, I'll give him an extra chip pool. The reinforced battle is 560. So just this infantry. Moves from there to 1407, so across the water for 1. Now, this is where I think there may have been a mistake, but I'm not 100% sure. Because the traffic jams state that only one German unit may use a given bridge in a single activation, and I'm thinking this is still the same activation, and this 304 unit, 2nd Panzer. No, it wasn't him, was it? Have I got this wrong? Hang on, I think I do have this wrong. Hang on. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it was him actually. He came across. Right, I'm getting myself muddled up now. Give me a second. Yeah, I was right. I thought I was right. He started up here. The 304 unit started up here somewhere. So he's already crossed this bridge, is what I'm trying to say. And now he's using reinforced battle, which is fine. And he's obviously wanting to try and come around and surround this guy, but he's using the bridge again. So I don't think you can do that because of the traffic jam rule. I could be wrong because the reinforced battle might mean it's something different. I think that wouldn't be allowed, but maybe somebody will put me straight on that. Anyway, so I'll carry on with how he moves them. So he moves them across the bridge there, and then down here for his 2nd movement point, and here for his 3rd movement point. So it's surrounding this unit, which is good, obviously. So this ups the strength from 15 to 3 to 19 to 3. So 5 to 1 becomes 6 to 1, and also there's another unit obviously in the fight, so it's another chip pool. So 6 to 1 odds, maximum of 9 chip pools. It mentions he could have reinforced with 116, this guy, and then go to a maximum of 10 chip pools for the elite bonus, but I think it's better to get the infantry moving west, he says. In actual fact, 1, 2, could have brought that guy down. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that wouldn't have been the crossing the bridge, so that probably would have been okay as well. But anyway, he then comes back to checking the roadblock at 1309 and rolls a 9, so no roadblock there. Now in the 1st German impulse, because it's a special impulse, the Allies weren't able to draw any cards, but this is the 2nd impulse, so they do draw a card. He is surrounded though, so if there was a unit coming in as an undetected defender, it wouldn't, because it's surrounded. Actually, yeah, that's right. So I think this is card he draws. He still uses the combat tactic, which is screen, and screen reduces the amount of chip pools by 2, so down to 7, which isn't too bad a thing because it's still got the large attack. he does actually link a picture with the card I showed you screen. He also shows his chip pools this time. He draws all 7, so it'd be 7 maximum, minimum of 2. He draws all 7. I'm not going to go hunting through my chips, my chits to weigh them out for you though. But he got a great result. A1 D7. So he flips 39. Is he in here? Yeah. So flips him for his attacker hit, and 7 hits is more than enough to take care of this guy. So about to make his advances after combat. This is when Martin mentions that he'd missed a couple of roadblock checks, so I think he goes back and yeah, he says he missed roadblock checks at 808, 707 and 1409. First 2 do not affect the battle, but 1409 would. So he does 3 checks on all the hexes that he's missed, and they all score high, so no roadblocks. So he advances 901 where and is into 1708. So that's a hex where the 1 minute unit was. Uh, 78 goes 1607 to 1708. Let's see, he's here. So although he's crossing across the water too, he's crossing from a different hex side, so that's allowed. And likewise, oh no, that's not crossing the water anyway. He goes in here as well. And that's his advances, and that he's now spent 6 command points, so that ends his impulse. So the next allied impulse, they draw card number 15, which is no command. So they carry out the event, which is engineers. The first part of the engineers event is to replace a roadblock with a reserve unit. This is the only roadblock available, but it is surrounded by German zone of control, so a reserve won't come in there. So the next part of the engineers event is to place a new roadblock somewhere. So it needs to be in a hex with value of 3 or greater. It needs to be within 2 hexes of a supplied German unit, and it needs to be in Allied and German communication and not adjacent to an Allied unit. So there's the 4 hexes. I've marked them with green cubes there. This can be tricky sometimes to decide where to go, but I think that's right. It looks like it's the 4 options. So then you come down to some time. Well, the first tiebreaker is highest whole value, and they're all 3s. So he decides at first that it should be in 808. I think he's maybe missing one of the tiebreakers. The next tiebreaker is westernmost, then northernmost. So whether he maybe picks northernmost, misses the westernmost. Again, Martin steps in and points out that it should be westernmost first, which would mean the roadblock goes into 1710. So 4th German impulse, he plays card 66 to activate the 80 core, and just moves these units into position, surround this infantry. So it moves 423 across the water. Moves 316 across the water. Moves 276. He has to move away from zone of control, so it's 2 points to move in there, with the purpose, I think, of crossing the water next time they get activated. And the same with 320. They move back for 2 movement points into here. Suppose he could have used him to attack across the water, but it's half strength, so don't be a strength of 1. Next plays card number 59 for the event, the bridge engineers, and decides to repair the bridge between 1707 and 1708. Kind of found this a slightly grey area because this bridge, it's been repaired now, but there's I mean, you could say it's still Allied controlled, although there's Germans either side of it. You would kind of think it's a German controlled bridge, but I don't think it's 100% clear in the rules that until you activate these units, it then becomes German controlled. Anyway, something to maybe find out and get confirmed. So this is his third activation, his final activation, final card. So his last activation of the day. It's a good one though, first SS. So activates first SS Panzer Corps with intention of attacking 0604 here and 1004, which is here, yeah. So let's move the units. 150 moves 902 to 1002 to 1003. So 1 and R4 to 5. 5 movement points into there. Piper moves 801 to 902. That's 1 movement point. 2 movement points, and then another 4. And then 8912 VG, which is here. This is where there's a slight error made, one that I've made myself, and I'm sure lots of others have. He wants to move that down into 1003 as well, so 1 into there and then 2 into there, but you're allowed 3 units in a stack, but you're only allowed 6 steps in a stack, so there's 1 step over there, the Piper unit, and there's a few other units catch you out that way. Anyway, I'll leave it as it is, we'll just carry on like that. So then he carries on moving the 12th SS into here, and 27, so one underneath, into here. That was 703 to 704, is that right? Yeah. And then 83FS, 83F, first SS, 803 to 704. So yeah, he goes in here as well. Then he has a slight dilemma about where this unit should go, if it should support the battle here, or if it should support the battle here. And the fact he's no cards left as well, no tactics, so it's something to think about. In the end, he decides to move it into 704. So we move into the first battle in 604. He has 6 units, 20 strength against 5 strength, so 41 odds. 6 units, no elites, no steps above 2, so just 6 chits and no tactics, of course. So it draws a card for the allies and points out that because there's 4 steps in 604, there can't be an undetected allied defender sent in if it happened to match the core. But he does get artillery for the combat tactic. And the results, not the best, but he is fighting in the town, are A2, D3. But since the defender is in a town, the D3 gets reduced down to 2. So it's 2 hits to each. So this is the first time that there's more steps than there is hits. So there's a few things you would look at regarding this. And at this point you carry out a hold check. And the hold check is a dice roll based on the hold value of the hex, which is 2. The number of steps, which is another 4. So dice roll is, 6. So 6 or less, he'll stay there and take a step loss, and higher than that, he'll retreat. He rolls a 9, so the units retreat. So they retreat to 605. Yeah, because can't retreat here, can't retreat here. So they retreat back to here. That satisfies one of the hits. And so to satisfy the second hit, it's the same thing again. So it's a hold check. This time the hex is a 0 hex. So 4 steps, but there's another condition. Once he's already retreated once, it's another 2 to the hold check. So the hold check is 6 again. This time he rolls a 2, so they don't retreat, stay where they are, and take a step loss. He talks about 393 unit taking step loss, but he also mentions that it's unit selector number 15, so just a slight issue with the unit number. So it is 395, which is the 15. You take the highest one first. And then we also have to take 2 hits to the Germans, and makes a slight error here, taking 27 and 8. So it was 2 stacks that attacked, so you need to split the damage dealt. So you should really be taking a step loss from one of these units, but obviously if you did have the choice, you would pick these guys. So 8 and 27 both take the step loss. But like I say, it should have been one of these guys and one from that stack. But I'll just carry on as he's done it, just to keep the session going. And then his advance after combat is moving the 12th SS in this hex. I'll put a German control marker down. The I've taken that down. So then the second attack is on Hex 1004. He has 5 units with a strength of 21, or 21 to 3, 7 to 1. 5 units, so 5 chip pools. 1 for elite is 6, and he says 6, but I believe it should be 7 because Piper's 3-step unit, so she get an extra chip pool as well. So I think it should be 7. He draws. Oh well, before that, the allies play their card. Again, they're surrounded out of communication, so they can't get an undetected allied defender. So the combat tactic is bug out, and the last part of bug out says you ignore it if they're out of communication, so they don't get any tactic to help them out. He pulls all 6 chits, and the results are A1, D5. So he flips 150. Where am I? Yeah, flips this guy for his hit. Yeah. And it was 5 hits for himself, so 1 for the IP and 4 was the magic number to take that guy out. Don't think he. Hang on a second. Yeah, right. It doesn't seem to advance his any units into Hex 1004. Actually, the last picture showing still shows the allied unit in the Hex, but if it was 5 hits he had, 1 removes the IP and 4 should kill him. Well, in fact, 3 should kill him because he was surrounded as well. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Hopefully we'll maybe find out when he goes into the next day. But I'll just leave the units as they are. I mean, clearly probably, well, maybe not. I mean, maybe we wouldn't move anything in, but anyway, we'll see what happens in the next day. So we've got 1 more allied impulse before the end of the day coming up. So allies draw card 17, which is 8 core. First command is deploy all core reserves. Now there's 2 units in the. Well, I've already took the one out. There's 2 units in the reserve units box from 8 core, but again, day 16, the 16th rules say that you can only deploy 1 reserve. So, and you pick the lowest selector number. So we take this guy and hopefully deploy him somewhere. This is probably one of the trickiest bits to get your head around, and can usually take some time to decide where exactly the unit should be placed. So I think my looking of it was I could have seen another hex that should have been picked, but I'll have a look and we can have a look at it and decide where this unit should go. So marked. I forgot. marked some green cubes here, which I suppose could be candidates for reserve placement. The conditions are an empty position hex, which they all are. In the unit's core area, their core area is that blue line there, so and south from that. So all of them are within that. Able to trace Allied supply. This can trace to here. This can trace to here. And these two can easily trace supply that way. But I think one of the main thing that's better looked at probably first is a German unit's proximate to the hex. First James selects this hex because the next thing the unit wants to be try to be within 3 hexes of a unit within the same core, ideally within its same division, but there's none of the 9th Armour on the board yet. So oh no, my bad, there is. But there's nowhere it can be within 3 of this 9th Armour. But this 28th is still within his core, so that's why we're looking at these hexes here. He decides this hex is within 3, but unfortunately there's no German unit that can reach this hex. There's no German unit approximate to this hex, unfortunately. So that's not a candidate. I feel it should be this hex, but the guys discount this. So I don't know if I'm missing. The other thing is it doesn't want to be dangerous surround. So if you put the unit here, then Germans could surround it. But I don't think this hex is in dangerous surround. I don't think anything can control this hex, so it's got an out. It's a 2, it's a position hex. Anyway, for some reason the guys discount this one, and it was within 3 of that. So if you can't find anything within 3 of a unit in the same core, you then pick the highest hold value hex. So this one's a 3, this one's a 2. They're both in supply. A German unit is proximate to them, and they're in the core boundary. They're not in danger surround, and they're not adjacent to an allied unit. That's one of their stipulations. So the fact this one's a 3 and this one's a 2, it should be this one that takes the unit. So the 9th Armour goes in there. Like I say, I think it should be that one, but I could be wrong. So I'm going to place it where they end up putting it anyway. So that's the end of December 16th. So I'll get the card set up and carry on with James's playthrough starting the 17th. So I'll see you all soon. Cheers. One last thing before we go. He did mention in the last step that the unit in 1004 was eliminated, and he advanced 150, 89 and Piper. So yeah, he advanced these guys into the hex. Yeah. that's all he'd done. I don't suppose there was much else he could do because this is the boundary for the first SS. Yeah, so that was all done. Okay, so December the 17th coming up soon. Okay, cheers.